Okay. Hello. Welcome. It's wet. It's Monday. It's the 23rd of September. How the heck did it get to be the 23rd of September? Good Lord. And, whoa. And I'm here. Kinda, sorta. Hello. Against all my friends' better judgment, I came into work today, despite the fact that I'm still suffering with whatever this thing is that won't let me go. And I called my doctor today to try to get in to see him, and I was informed that there was no way I could get in to see any doctor today because most of them had called in sick. Oh, God. Seriously. Not most of them, too. But in a practice of 5, 2 of them were out. Also sick, and I'm assuming there's stuff going around. At any rate, being the plucky person I am, I came in to do the show, despite my and I hope I make it through without starting one of these coughing jags that can go on forever. Alrighty, before we get started, how about a moment of silence for the twin massacres on the North Shore yesterday? Yeah, that was not fun. That was not fun. So, there you have it. I don't know what else to say. It's a bitch being a sports fan, isn't it? Woo! Those are some difficult games. Man. And if that wasn't bad enough, my other team, the Packers, God, lost in this unbelievably ridiculous game by 1 point to the horrific... Who would they play? The Bengals. I guess. Yeah. So, I'm not sure what you guys want to talk about. I got a few things up my sleeve. They're not sports related. I do not believe. I have one obit to start this show. It's a dreary Monday, and as I said, 2 horrible sports losses for Pittsburgh fans yesterday. So I don't think anybody's, in too chipper a mood today. So we start with an obit. Seems to be in the spirit of things. And this is a woman named Joy Covey. And she was young. I mean, by my standards, very young. She was 50 years old. And she was there at the beginning of Amazon.com. And you always think of all those tech companies and all of those revolutionary, I mean, good heavens, Amazon.com absolutely was like a neutron bomb in terms of blowing up every model of retailing that had existed. Joy Covey, who would have been then, in her 30s, she joined Amazon when it was a very new company and was there in an executive capacity throughout. And the reason I want to talk about her death is just because she died in the most unbelievably ironic way. Now, generally, irony is not something that pops up when people meet their maker, but in this case, unbelievable. 50 years old, beautiful, brilliant, had it all. And she's one of these classics, like so many people who are just uber achievers. She dropped out of high school. It's people like that they never want, young kids to hear about because they think, well, I can be like that. Well, odds are no. I mean, it's not a good a good idea to try to emulate that. She dropped out of high school. She worked at 15 years of age. She worked as a grocery clerk. She later got her act together, ends up at Cal State, and then later Harvard Law School, where she said she absolutely did not fit in because she didn't really ever feel all that educated. She'd say we'd go to lunch and people would talk about their favorite 17th century poets, and I'd be sitting there thinking, I don't think I can even name 5 poets, let alone 17th century poets. But she joined Amazon in 1996, and she was in charge of their finances. So she just, I wish you could see the picture. She's really beautiful. And here's how she met her end. She was riding her bike in San Mateo County, remote stretch of road, but she was an avid bike rider. And she was hit by a vehicle. It's the vehicle that is where the irony comes into her death, because she was hit by a van that is a shipping service used by Amazon. So, I just think that's weird. And dead at the scene. Something weird about that. Anyway, something maybe more uplifting. We started with the 2 lousy games, and now a young person dead, and now where can we go? Oh, I know! Let's go to the emails. Some of these are from, all of these are from you, and some of these are about shows past, and often they are about things that have been said on the show. So this would take us back to last week a little bit. If you will recall, last week I was doing an imitation of Diana Rehm. I won't, don't worry. From NPR, does a talk show. And I find her voice unbearable to listen to. And so I was having some fun with that. And here is some of what came in as a result. Lynn, I was rocked by last Thursday's podcast when you voiced your distaste for the Diane Rehm show. I thought I was the only one who felt this way. How on earth is that show supposed to attract serious people to become NPR listeners or supporters? I can't help but think it has the opposite effect. Okay, so this is Scott. He's in agreement with me. And then he adds, bringing up something else. Last week I saw a photograph of Pelosi, Reid, Boehner, and McConnell standing together. The conservatives, that'd be Boehner and McConnell, were standing up straight in their business attire with serious faces and the whole bit. On the other hand, the Democrats, Harry Reid's shoulders were slouched, hands folded in front of him. That's what he always looks like. He looks like this timid. He looks like a timid minister about to bury somebody. That's what he's always slouched. You look at him, and if you were to say, this man is a leader, he is such a leader that, in fact, that's what his position is. He leads the entire upper body of the American Congress. And anyone's reasonable reaction looking at Harry would be, him? Because he does not have the stature of a leader. He does not have the aura of a leader. So he must be I've never been able to figure it out. He must not be what he looks like, although the positions he takes seem like he is what he looks like. I don't know. Can't figure him out. Wish he'd go away. So there's Harry Reid with his slouched in his hands in front of him. And then Scott says, and there was Pelosi, who always looks to me like a meth-addled chihuahua who just got threatened by some street toughs. I guess pit bulls. I don't see her like that. I don't. And Scott says it just seems like the Democrats exist to make us believe that someone is still really on our side. Huh. Have a great Monday. Well, it ain't starting out too well. Okay, so there's that. And then quite opposite of that, here is another. And this is another email I received, which obviously you will see does not make me happy. But it says this. First off, I'd like to let you know that I have been a fan of yours for many years. I first caught your show on C-SPAN. It must be at least 10 years ago by now. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, she said, belying her Wisconsin roots. I was on C-SPAN. When the hell was that? So it was on the eve of the presidential election, which was it Gore? Was it that long ago? It was either Gore or Kerry. Whatever it was, we lost. I do remember that part. I think it was Kerry. And C-SPAN put my show out there for the world to see, and I did. I mean, I acquired a lot of wonderful listeners as a result, and obviously this woman was one. And she said, I appreciate your off-the-cuff style, your talks with your sister, and the general realness of the show. Although we don't always agree, I have up until now just loved your style and genuineness. Although I don't listen to NPR much, I do know who Diane Rehm is and the very difficult challenges she has faced. It is extremely painful to listen to you ridicule a person who is doing her best and is facing challenges courageously. I'm shocked to realize how unkind you can be. I gave it a pass once, but when you began your insensitive attacks again today, I had to tune out. There is a clear line between clever and uncharitable commentary. I'm always telling my son that, actually. Ad hominem attacks say more about the speaker than the recipient. She gives me her full name, which is great, and I guess she's not listening, so I can't give her my apologies and sorry that I disappointed her. It's very hard to argue with what she's saying, but anyone who's listened to me for a while knows that I am capable of being extremely nasty and uncharitable. And generally I'm doing that under the guise of humor, which is what the Diane Rehm thing was. But for this woman, it was too much. And I appreciate that, and I'm sorry if I've lost her. And I can't disagree with anything she's saying. But I will say, as the other emailer said, that it is, oh no, that it is beyond me how a network would continue to carry somebody on radio whose voice is that distracting. I'm sorry. It's sort of like to me, it is I cannot listen to it. I cannot listen. And I cannot be the only one. There's got to be thousands upon thousands. For the people who stuck with her, who knew her before she got that voice, she used to have a regular voice, but she suffered it was a physical thing that attacked her voice. She struggled, as this woman suggests, mightily against it, rehab, all this stuff. And I guess what she's got now is a triumph of sorts, and the best that can be had, given whatever it is, this ailment or diagnosis that she has. It's just that I also don't find her a great host. And granted, I didn't hear her show when she had a normal voice. But I just find her show so public radio-ish in the negative sense. I mean, so dry and spiritless and so given that, I could maybe see if she had like a ton of personality and pizzazz that maybe I can see retaining her because of her incredible pizzazz and personality and intellect and all of that stuff. But I don't get it. I do not get it. And I really don't get 2 hours of it. Maybe their ratings or maybe they show that she does hold an audience, but wow. It just shows there are a lot better people out in the world than me. Because I cannot tolerate it. I cannot tolerate it. I've often wondered, and I've wondered, I've said it out loud a million times. I think it's the funniest thing in the world that I have a radio show. We got a call? Hello, Dad. Hello.
How you doing? I agree with you 100%. That woman's terrible. I don't know why they put people on there and pay them to do that. I mean, that's a waste of money to me. I think that's more crap that's on TV. I look at it as more garbage that's on television. There's a lot of crap on there, and I don't know. Even like Rush Limbaugh, how in the hell does he make the money that he makes? That guy's a big blowhard, and all he does is bitch about the Republicans, the Democrats, the president. He's so annoying. And you got these idiots that listen to the guy and make him rich. I don't get it. People are so damn stupid. Have a good day.
Well, let me just say this about Ms. Ream. She is not stupid. She's very bright and very highly thought of in the Washington community. She's, and I think that's part of her staying power. NPR is pretty much centered there in D.C. She was the go-to for, I can just see they're standing with her, they're standing by her, and I understand that. But man, on commercial radio, her career would be finished. I'm sorry, people would say it's too bad. It's like a football player getting a career-ending injury. I mean, sorry, you're done. You're done. It's sad, but it's over. So that's all I have to say. And here is Ansel. I know you've been trying to stick with kinder, gentler topics, but I don't see how we are going to be able to avoid the topic of the Republicans attempting to blackmail the president with their threats to shut down the government if Obamacare is not defunded or repealed or whatever. And Ansel says, P.S. I'm sick too, been sick for 10 days now. I started feeling better until I demanded antibiotics from my doctor. See, everybody keeps telling me, you need to be on antibiotics. And I'm one of these responsible souls who avoids antibiotics because too many people, you guys who start popping them the minute you're sick, whether an antibiotic is what you need or not, are destroying antibiotics. We're not going to, in 20 years, maybe 10 years, there are going to be bugs around that we simply cannot fight back because of this drives me crazy. I am only taking antibiotics if it is determined that this is not viral, that this is, in fact, it has a biological basis and is biota in there doing terrible things, and that it will not remedy itself, and I need a little bit of some help or others. But because you don't want to be part of this craziness of thinking an antibiotic is, the be-all and end-all every time you're sick. It's just not. We've got another call. Hello? Hello?
Hey, good morning, Lynn.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, we're all dragging from the twin win.
No, it's a
win-loss, Yeah.
That was a bad day.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was up last night checking the score because my wife gave up on it on the first quarter.
Yeah, right.
She almost hit the big screen and just said, I can find better entertainment elsewhere.
Well, I was not so surprised. I mean, I predicted the Steelers' defeat because I think it's going to be a very, very, very long season, and
that's what she's predicting. Also.
Yeah, no, I think there's no doubt about that. But the Pirates really freaked me out.
I know you've been really following them since.
Well, I have since day one. I mean, so.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you a little thing.
Yeah.
Because I told my wife, I said, okay, I couldn't call you a fan because I think a fan sticks with a team through thick and thin. I mean, I think that's where the word fanatic comes from.
That's right. I think a fan's that way, too.
Yeah, and she doesn't see it that way. She raws for them when they're winning and picks them apart when they're not winning and says she likes to see a good game and everything. So I said to her, maybe you should get into fantasy football where you have more of a choice of choosing members and teams to play and everything like that, and then you can be entertained by that action as opposed to reality football. Am I making sense?
Yeah, but I mean, the fact is, fantasy football is a fantasy. It's not real, so...
Oh, yeah, well...
But I can see that players get into it as much, but it seems to me it requires a lot more attention than the real thing.
Right. Now, let me ask you, are you familiar with fantasy football? Because I'm not fully.
No, a little. I mean, I have some vague understanding of what it is, yes.
Okay. Now, when you play those fantasy football games, isn't it acted out in like a video format that you see it actually playing?
No, that's not what I think.
I think there's a game. Maybe
I don't know. No, I think it's based on whatever the players you have actually do in the real games that they are in.
Yeah, I know. So it produces stats and wins and losses and everything.
That's my sense. Now, maybe there's some spin-off that gets into a video of some sort, but no.
Yeah, I thought I saw something somewhere that was that they have connections with that actually play it out in a video format.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, what I really called you about is about the Diane Rehm show.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think I can explain what you're going through with her, because I didn't listen to her, didn't know about her reputation, but then I would pick her up every now and then, and she has very good programming, in-depth subjects, seems knowledgeable about it, and I got fascinated with the subject matter and the variety and everything like that. Now, the thing that struck me was that shakiness of her voice, and I didn't know what it was or understood it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I got used to it after a while,
okay, good.
Strangely enough,
all right,
because the subject matter and the timeliness of the subjects was so great.
Really? So you really think she really has these... I can't get past the voice then.
Yeah, but here's why I think that you're going through. You were raised in a time with journalism and on screen and on audio, sort of perfectionism, high professional, high quality. And to listen to somebody with a warbly voice probably just drives you crazy, right?
Maybe. I mean, I think...
That's what I think.
Well, the whole idea is if you're going to listen to somebody, you have to be able to listen to that voice. And as what I was saying is I find it remarkable that as many people in my career have been willing to listen to mine, because I don't think... I'm serious. You
have a very easy voice.
Oh, I don't think so at all. That I ended up in radio is like a joke to me. But I can't handle her. You said warbly. I can't get. It annoys me so much that I can't do it. I find it that grating.
You can't. You couldn't get used to it and be listening for the subject matter and the timeliness and the depth and everything.
No, if it's a subject I really want to know more about, I'll get a book.
Well, okay. Would you be able to sit and watch a pretty face, a perfect face and a perfect voice, with a stupid program?
No, of course not.
Okay. Okay. Well, see, but I think there's a connection there. You were in this as a professional, and I think you have high standards. Okay, but here's another example. There's a West Virginia NPR-related station where they have a guy on. He must be a volunteer, and he comes in to announce the stations and all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And he has I think he's disabled, but I think he's a volunteer. He's not there all the time, but I hear his voice, and that really is like
too much.
It sounds like he's about to die every time he does it. And yeah, I can give you the call letters of the station.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay.
But it's NPR throughout West Virginia, and it talk about somebody that drives you crazy because he doesn't have a program. He's just announcing the required stuff for the identification of the station system.
Well, that's stupid to use an announcer. I mean, if his job is an announcer, then it could be he's literally, figuratively, and in every other way grandfathered in because no one wants to hurt his feelings, or he's been there since,
that's about what it is. But Diane Rehm, I think the subject matter definitely overcomes the voice. You get used to it after a while.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay, hang in there. You're a pro. That's why you're doing it. Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Okay, thanks. Jeez. I got to get a break in here. I got to get a break. Wait. I got to, but doesn't mean I'm going to. Just one other quick email from Dorothea, because, Dorothea, I did what you did. She says, I kept flipping back and forth between the Steeler game and the Emmy Awards last night. And she says both were train wrecks. You got it. That's it. That's it. She says the dance numbers on the Emmys were ridiculous and so unnecessary. And in my opinion, the Steelers could have used a dance number. Wouldn't that have been great? You nailed it, Dorothea. Here's a break.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for a look at changes in the East End. Plus, Ahmad Jamal, Bill Burr, Michael Bublé, and Government Mule. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania. And on the web at pghcitypaper.com. And on your smartphone with GPS-enabled listings at citypapermobile.com.
Come to Little's for all of your back-to-school needs. Little's has everything for all ages to stay in style for this upcoming school season. Check out the large selection from Doc Marten, Steve Madden, UGG, Clarks, Lely Kelly, New Balance, and much, much more. Don't forget to come visit this season's colorful handbag selection as well. Little Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okay, well, as Ansel said, there's this big stuff going on. I refuse to deal with it. I do. Ansel, I'm not dealing with it because it's like, the gun massacres. Been there, done that. Everything that's been said and could be said, they just, I feel it's really living in this Republican world is like living in Groundhog Day. You just keep waking up to the same story. And I think we know the way it's going to end. And, in fact, they will not shut the government down. Or if they do, they'll be the losers. Whatever. Here, we got a caller. Go ahead. Hello.
Hello, this is Clarence from Canonsburg.
Hello, Clarence from Canonsburg.
I'm glad you said it.
What did I say?
I have to call and tell Lynn that when I first started listening to your show, people would say, how can you listen to her? I can't stand her voice.
There you go.
Yeah, I said, when you said it, I said, okay, now I can call because she said it.
No, it's so true. My voice is so not that professional radio voice. We know what those voices are.
And the funny thing is, I used to say, at first I couldn't stand it, but her show's so good that I got used to it.
Exactly like George said about Diana Reed.
Exactly.
Well, see, I don't find her. I like a show with more personality. He's more of an egghead, I guess, and just listens for content.
That's kind of why, just like he does. I couldn't take her voice when they first switched over, when Duquesne used to own it.
But you do listen?
And I listen, like at 11, because her show's good. And it took me a long time to get used to it. And I do the voice. This is Diane Reed.
I promise.
And I have to do it almost like every day. But
right.
Because it's just like the guy in West Virginia that he was talking about. He just seems like an old guy, who has that voice.
But isn't it interesting that, one would think that to have a job in radio, one of the obvious requirements would be to have a voice. I mean, that would be basic.
See, well, your voice is a voice of a character.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like you're strange. It's a character voice, like a Myron Cope or something like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But hers sounds like a malady, or that she's like 120, which she is not. And that's the difference. I mean, my voice might be annoying, but at least it's strong and is I can't deal with the word. I just
what first distracted me was I felt bad for her.
Oh, you're such a sweetie.
That's what it was, and because I had to look her up to figure out what was going on. I had to research it. What is going on? Why is she on the radio?
Well, she's there because she's good at what she does.
Exactly.
But it's not. She would never be on the radio in commercial radio ever.
Mm-hmm. You know what I found? What I realized this weekend, because I listen to that station a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Since they've changed over. I'm not listening to jazz all day. Is that on the weekend shows, everybody sounds like the guy from This American Life now. With all these little shows.
Yeah.
Why does everybody sound like, what's his name from This American Life?
What?
The host of This American Life.
I'm just blanking, but yes.
They all
sound like him?
All the guys sound like him.
There's jokes about the public radio voices, that the women all sound the same and the men
the women all sound like Terry Gross.
Yeah. And then, you see, that's one of the reasons my voice is so upsetting to some people, because women on the radio do sound much more feminine than I do.
Yeah.
Right. And so
I just listen and then get adapted. It's a good show.
Well, it's just classic Clarence, because, you're such a good soul that you actually are going for content.
Oh, no, trust me, I was cracking up when you were doing the voice last Thursday.
Oh, you were?
And I'm thinking, Lynn's making fun of her voice, and I went back to the past when people used to make fun of your voice. And then I'm thinking of, now I'm blanking on his name. Who was your guest?
Tom?
Tom Blackley.
Yeah.
And I said, he doesn't have the best radio voice. I'm cracking up.
No. So you're thinking, here are two people that don't have great radio voices making fun of a woman who doesn't have a great radio voice.
Exactly.
Where do they get off?
But that whole you doing Diane Reed made me feel better about myself, because I always do it. I'm like, do you ever listen to Diane Reed? I do that.
But here's the thing. Most people who were listening to that were laughing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is where, I'm sorry, I am more an entertainer even. And if you look at comedians and entertainers in general, if we were always nice, no one would listen.
Oh, no. Some of my favorite comedians are the ones who hit the hardest.
That's right.
Yeah, and they're the ones who,
And I'm sorry, this is not... See, Diane Rehm would never say the things I say, because that's not the show she does. She does it's a polite show. My show is not necessarily polite. I have a good heart in many ways, but mostly it is for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm glad you understand. And your voice ain't so hot either, mister.
Yeah, well, I can change it to a radio voice if you like.
Oh, I bet you could. I know you do all kinds of voices. Okay, love you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Love that guy. Laura writes, one does have to, or maybe should, feel for one who tries or overcomes difficulties. But that doesn't mean we want to listen to them. Well, yes. You are entitled to your opinions, and if someone doesn't like them, then they don't need to listen. Well, that's exactly what I lost a listener. That's what happened. Of course, the same applies to her opinions. You graciously read her email. Yeah, I hope she comes back. Sometimes people say they'll never listen again, and then they sort of slowly come back. If all the people who got mad at me and left, stayed gone, I would not be here. Believe me. You are, because mostly I've pissed off, now that'll upset some people. Mostly I've upset people who tend to share my political views when I'm not, strong enough, or when they think I deviate. You are who you are, and anyone who has been listening to you should know that. I searched for her this morning, Diane Rehm, but wasn't able to listen. We'll try later. Love that caller that calls and states his opinion and ends the call. Have a nice day. He makes me smile. He makes me smile too. He's got a shtick. Whether he intended to have a shtick or not, the guy's got a shtick. And that, too, is entertaining. Okay, what I really wanted to talk about today, because I wasn't here on Friday, I took the day off and tried to rid myself of this condition and didn't do too well. I went ballistic when I saw what the Pope had said. Since day one, I love this Pope. Now, this Pope is not going to, there's a lot of things he thinks that I absolutely don't agree with. And at heart, he's, not going to change the church single-handedly like I would want him to. But just the compassion and humaneness and humility that he brings to the pontificate is so refreshing. It really feels like with John Paul II and Benedict that I'm talking about, I'm not Catholic. I'm just saying, but the church is so huge that it is such a force. And you do want it to be a positive force. And I thought it was such a constrained and often nasty, and I just couldn't tolerate it. And this Pope seems to be correcting course. It'd been a long haul. Somebody counted up the years since we've had a Pope that has this kind of humanity. Now, I know a lot of people thought John Paul II did, but he was just charismatic, but he was also extremely conservative and doctrinaire. This Pope, wow. He's criticized his church for putting dogma before love. How do you not love him? Putting dogma before love, and for prioritizing certain doctrines, moralistic doctrines, over service to the poor and to the marginalized. See, this is what the nuns do. They practice the true Christianity of the church by ministering to the poor and the marginalized. And they were beat up by the last two popes for doing so, for not constantly screaming about abortion and homosexuality, but instead ministering. And here's a pope, finally, who agrees. Here's a quote. The dogmatic and moral teachings of the church are not all equivalent. The church's pastoral ministry cannot be obsessed with the transmission of a disjointed multitude of doctrines to be imposed insistently. I love this Pope. Here's more. These are his words. We have to find a new balance. Otherwise, even the moral edifice of the church is likely to fall like a house of cards, losing the freshness and fragrance of the gospel. I love this Pope. I love this Pope. I love him for so many reasons. I love him for the fact that he won't even sleep in the fancy apartment that all the popes have had. He took one look and said, no, I don't know. I sort of like that guest house I stayed in. And that is a very Spartan guest house. And also in this interview, where he said all these wonderful things, he explained why he couldn't live in that papal apartment because it was so isolating. And the quote is, he says, I cannot live without people. This is a pope who is in fact a true minister. He is a priest in all the wonderful ways. Here's something else he said. A person once asked me in a provocative manner if I approved of homosexuality. I replied with another question. Tell me, when God looks at a gay person, does he endorse the existence of this person with love or reject and condemn him? Rhetorical. And he felt the answer was obvious. God looks with love. He does not reject. He's self-critical. He talks about how when he first got into a administrative position at what he said was the crazy age of 36, where he was made a superior, he didn't know how to be a superior, and he was very authoritarian. And then he says this, God, I love him, but I have never been a right-winger. It was my authoritarian way of making decisions that created problems. He was saying, yeah, I was an authoritarian, but don't say I was a right-winger, because I've never been a right-winger. Here's more of his words. This church with which we should be thinking is the home of all, not a small chapel that can hold only a small group of selected people. We must not reduce the bosom of the universal church to a nest protecting our mediocrity. I love this Pope. I wish he weren't as old as he was, because I'd like him to hang around for 100 years. He could fix the church. He could right it again. It's gone off course. He could pull it back. And this kind of tone, this kind of humanity will bring Catholics back. It will. It will. I don't know how he's going to get to all these bishops and cardinals who've been infected by the authoritarian right-wing conservatism small tent style of the last two popes. But he's going to have to yank them back. Because now much of what they say, I mean, at the same time I'm reading this, Bishop Zubik has something in the Post-Gazette where he's arguing why homosexuals shouldn't marry. I think Bishop Zubik, having written that, then seeing what the Pope said, might have felt a little bit like maybe there was egg on his face. I hope he did. I hope he did. Because the church that so many of us have seen before Francis came along is a censorious church. It's always pointing fingers and telling us you're not good enough. And he says quite openly, I am a sinner. The Pope says, oh gosh, I am. But he's not a self-righteous sinner like the others. Okay, I just want to say it again. I love this Pope. And I love the fact that he is making all of these right-wing Catholics probably go nuts. I love it. Okay, got to get a second break in. We'll be back. Ooh, Pamela. I didn't give her name before. The woman who wrote that how mean-spirited I was about Diane Rehm and how disappointed she was in me has written. And so she was listening. Oh, that's good news. I don't know what she said, but when we come back, we'll hear from her again. Ooh. Stay tuned.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
This is Les Ludwig, an independent candidate for mayor of the city of Pittsburgh. I ask for your vote on November 5th, and here's why. Some candidates play politics. I stand for a secure position in regards to fracking, one that's based on my background as a food technologist and opportunities that were presented in my lifetime in the dairy industry when I was a food chemist for the United States Army in Washington, D.C., and the dairy products literally stunk. Someone had to go ahead and take a stand. I did the chemistry, and I stood tall. What are we doing here with fracking? We have a fight between money and public safety. No one has defined clearly where the danger level is in the distance from the wells. Until we take the moratorium for 3 years and find out what that answer is, I have to stand on the side of public health, not on the side of $500 million of money. It's a mistake, because when we poison our water, we literally sentence ourselves to big trouble. I ask you for your vote and the question of standing tall when it comes to making a decision about fracking. Let's keep Allegheny County and its citizens safe. I thank you.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. This week, 50% off tickets to the City Theater's Tony Award-winning play, Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike. Supplies are limited. Bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. Bergbargains.com. Does your furnace and air conditioning run nonstop? Are your heating and cooling bills too high? Contact Pittsburgh Foam Insulation. Their certified installers are ready to insulate your home using the best wall insulation products available, and the owner has over 20 years' experience. Pittsburgh Foam Insulation is locally owned and is not a franchise, so unlike their competitors, there are no franchise fees that will be passed on to you, which means Pittsburgh Foam Insulation is able to offer their customers a lower, more affordable price than their competitor. Call 412-856-6100 for a free, no-obligation estimate, or visit PittsburghFoamInsulation.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okay, well, her name is Pam, and she has written back and said, Lynn, when I said I couldn't take it anymore, I was speaking of that broadcast, not for all time. I'm listening now, as a matter of fact. And then she says, look, I hope I'm not that touchy. I just felt that you overdid it. I still think you're great. Oh, thank you, Pam. I mean, you know, I can't argue with anything you said. I mean, in my humor, I'm capable of incredible nastiness. I mean, I really am. And that does say something about me. And ad hominem attacks? Hey, what would a dinner party be if you couldn't do that? I mean, I like to laugh, and often laughing at others' expense. And I have to tell you that I come from a family in which, you know, everyone was always fair game. And so we tended to laugh at ourselves before somebody could do it to us. So it's not that I take myself all that seriously either. I hope. Anyway, whatever. Here's Chuck on the Pope. Lynn, do you think the College of Cardinals knew, I wonder that, when they selected this guy, what kind of Pope they would get? It's surprising because that College of Cardinals was the direct result of the last two popes. They chose that College of Cardinals. So you got to figure there's a lot of doctrinaire conservatives in there. And that they chose this pope, I don't know. It could be just part of the church's ability to save itself all the time. I mean, it hasn't existed for 2,000 plus years because it doesn't know how to survive. It somehow does. I don't know if they really knew. I think they knew Benedict was such a sourpuss and had such a lack of charisma and even political acumen that I'm sure that they wanted a kinder, gentler face and maybe a more charismatic person and maybe somebody more outside the curia. Is that how it's pronounced? And maybe that's what they went for. I would think they're surprised a bit. Chuck says, do you think the cardinals had the wisdom to know that this pope is what the church needs right now? If so, we have a smart group of cardinals at the helm. I don't know. I think my gut tells me they got a little more than they bargained for. I don't know. And Tom, I am not going to read that. I'll read this part. Frank Bruni did a wonderful piece in the New York Times yesterday about the Pope and his openness and humility and charity, and then he segued in it. And Tom says he thought it was just brilliant. He segued to make a parallel with the brutality of the extreme Christian Republicans and their tiny little tent of a church too. And Tom suggests you read that. It was extremely good. I agree. And the guy on West Virginia Public Radio has been identified by PJ. He says that's Frank Stowers. Many of us love him. His voice is like an old shoe. He's almost 90. He's a World War II vet. There's no accounting for taste. Well, see, but I think when so his voice is like an old shoe because you know it. There's not a person who moved into Pittsburgh from somewhere else who, upon hearing Myron Cope's voice, did not be so astonished that they could barely speak. I mean, I happened to be working at the same place he worked. When I heard Myron for the first time, I thought, you got to be kidding me. But heck, the fact that a Myron Cope is accepted in this town is the same reason why Lynn Cullen is accepted in this town. This city, and I thank it very much, does allow for characters and odd voices to be heard. And can you imagine how boring it would be if we all sounded the same? I mean, all you have to do is look at the nightly news. That's what it looks like or sounds like. Okay, so this Frank guy at West Virginia Public Radio obviously is grandfathered in, exactly like what I said. No one's going to take that job away from him. And in many ways, that's, I guess, as it should be. And that probably one could say the same about Diane Rehm. And now, to finish things, there was an interesting piece somewhere, it's the New York Times, I think, over the weekend sometime, about American manufacturing and how all of these cities and towns, and heaven knows we know it around here, are just destroyed. Factories falling apart, nothing happening in them, people leaving for jobs. And one of the industries that were just destroyed in the last 20 years in this country was textile industry, textile mills. Many in the South, many in New England, and they're just gone. You know, those were one of the first things outsourced to Bangladesh, where, you know, you can have the kind of conditions where people can burn up by the hundreds because of, you know, there's no OSHA there, and you only have to pay them a few pennies. And Americans really like the garments they sew because they're a lot cheaper than they'd be if Americans were paid a living wage to make the garments. And Americans have chosen low price over life, I guess, a living for Americans. So they talk about a mill in Gaffney, South Carolina, which is one of them that was closed down, which is now opened. And here's what's fascinating. It's open because some of the people, some of the clothing manufacturers that did go overseas are coming back. Why are they coming back? Well, they ain't coming back out of the goodness of their souls. They ain't coming back because they think Americans need jobs. This is what's interesting. It now makes economic sense for them to do it here. Here's why. Transportation costs. If you're going overseas to make all that stuff, you got to transport all that stuff back. And those transportation costs are sky high. So if you make it here, and this is where it's staying, it's a fraction. You lose all that transportation costs. You get a quicker turnaround time to market. And amazingly, labor costs are not that much higher than overseas. And here's the interesting reason why. It won't surprise you when I tell you, because there's no way you can pay an American $2 a day. And yet labor costs are not much higher now if you make it here. Why? Because of technology. Because when this mill reopened, and it's filled with machines that do what workers used to do. So this is a good news, bad news story. This is a story of how some of these jobs will come back to the United States because now it is financially efficacious to do it here. But the reason it is because you don't have to pay anybody because you don't need workers. It's machines doing it. So, let me get you a number or two. It's beyond belief. Okay, the mill now, the automated mill now, produces 2.5 million pounds of yarn a week. Okay? It does that, 2.5 million pounds, with 140 workers. In 1980, that kind of production level, 2.5 million pounds, would have required more than 2,000 workers. This is what technology has given us. What used to take 2,000 workers now takes 140. What happens to the other? What happens? So when I saw, they're coming back, I was so excited. Then I saw why. My God. My God. There's all kinds of numbers in here about that. But so take all of that's. I'll never forget the day I got sent by Channel 4 a million years ago to go over to CMU and do this story on some robot that they had that was like doing office mail. And I was all excited and went running over there, and I was really disappointed because it wasn't a robot like this. It was it was just a cart. But that cart would like go and stop at desks and go over here and do this and do that. And the guy was showing it to me, 'cause this had to be in the early 80s. The guy who shows this to me is so excited. And I said, but what happens to the poor guy who who used to deliver the mail? The guy in the mail room. What's going to happen to him? And I remember the guy was interviewing just sort of like, oh, no, he'll be fine. I mean, there'll be other jobs created. We will be creating jobs by this kind of technology. And I, for the life of me, was thinking, huh? You're creating machines that do the work that people have always done. How does that create jobs? It destroys jobs. What do you mean it creates jobs? And I have been proved right. Destroys jobs. Good Lord. We used to employ over 2,000 people, now 140. And don't worry, they'll keep pulling that down, down, down. Pretty soon there'll be one person sitting at some console. Well paid. Well paid. And you want to know where the middle class went? There it is. I'm sorry on that rather depressing note, but that's it. We're out of time. Tomorrow. Go Bucks.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.